It's Brainwash for Dr. Tom, guitar picks with Brad Reaves out of Brown Summit, North Carolina. We've asked Brad to compose a list of 20 influence songs. Brad, can you tell us how you came up with your list?
Well, it wasn't as easy as I thought it was going to be, because after I started thinking about all of the different styles that I've played over the years, I wanted to try to represent a little bit of everything. And so I just started generating a list, and it was about 50 tunes. And then I sort of started whittling that down, and then I got down to about 30, and then I had to whittle those down, which really hurt to cut some of them. And, of course, there are some on this list that should be on there more than once because they played for so long that their styles changed, and I learned from their new styles. But so it is. That's how I came up with my 20.
Okay, onto the list. George Harrison, Day Tripper.
Nothing but a classic, great guitar lick by one of the best-known sidemen in the industry, George Harrison. Of course, this guy gets hooked up with two of the best songwriters of pop music of the last century, and sits there and pumps out these guitar licks that are great. And I think the thing I learned from him was he pulled from a lot of different genres, and he stayed out of the way of the song, basically. He dressed it. He played in the right places. He played extremely tastefully and had a lot of technique, but the technique never overshadowed the music that he played. I attribute the Beatles to really being the ones that rang the bell first for me, and those guys drew from traditional blues, American black, hardcore R&B, straight-ahead 50s rock and roll, Nashville and West Coast based hardcore country music. Mm-hmm. And so they were pulling from a lot of genres, and it all basically though became them with that pop sensibility that they had.
Mm-hmm. How old were you when you started playing guitar?
It was about the 10th grade.
Mm-hmm.
Must have been about 15.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying George was sort of played a very supporting role to both Paul and John as far as the music that they created together?
Yeah, I think that they were the epitome of a band. Each one of those four guys brought their own personality to the group, and had any of the four been someone else, it would have been a completely different band, and might not have been. They might not have done what they did do. But Harrison, it was almost like you didn't know he was there in a sense because he was so there. He stayed out of the way of the songs, and I think what I learned from him was how to play a guitar lick on a song and keep the song out front, because those guys were songwriters, and those guitar licks he got from all over the place. It was obvious that he was a student of American music for sure.
Mm-hmm. It's Brainwash for Dr. Tom and guitar picks with Brad Reaves, Eric Clapton, Strange Brew.
Ah, yes, Clapton. I lived the life of a millionaire, spent all my money, didn't have a care, took my friends out for one big ride, bought bootleg whiskey, champagne and wine. Nobody knows you when you're down and out. headed straight and there ain't no doubt. Don't nobody love you. Don't nobody know you when you're down and out. Completely with the 3 o'clock in the morning rasp in the voice there in one little section. Yeah, I would say it's too much bourbon, but it's much too early for too much bourbon, so I can't attribute it to that. Clapton's one of those guitar players where you know him by one word, Clapton. Mm-hmm. And everybody knows who that is. Mm-hmm. You know, there are other ones, and we'll talk about some of them. Hendrix, and you say that, every guitar player, oh yeah, man. Clapton's one of those. He is also one of those that, like the Beatles, he came a little after the Beatles. The Beatles were the first to light the spark for me, but
yeah. Mm-hmm.
The British invasion of those guys that were studying American blues especially. He's one. Jimmy Page is one. Jeff Beck is one. They were less pop and melodic than the Beatles were. The Rolling Stones, definitely another group of those guys that really worked at the American blues, the Animals. And Clapton, early on, just absolutely rang my bell, Cream alone. Mm-hmm. And, he wasn't a singer at that point. And taking all these old American blues tunes and spitting them back at us with these great turned up guitars. And he's more melodic now than he was then. But that's one, Clapton.
It's Brainwash with Dr. Tom and Guitar Picks with Brad Reaves, Chuck Berry, Johnny B. Good.
Well, there are other songs you can pick of Chuck's, like Memphis, Tennessee and stuff, but this is the one. This is the one that made the movie that everybody saw, Back to the Future, and that's because it's a great lick. Get the idea. It's a great lick, Those guys Chuck Berry specifically, played with heavier strings, so you didn't get the wiggle that you get now. I mean, he just... Now you're going to have stuff like... After you heard Clapton, you did that anyway. One great thing about Chuck Berry, like I said with Harrison, Chuck could he wrote great songs, and there's still a lot of these songs are being covered by people, and they still hold up. And here was this black guy who was able to write songs for the middle class white people that connected, much like Eminem is with hip hop. How is a guy like Eminem connecting? Well, it's because who knows why? It just is, and that's what Chuck Berry had. And great guitar licks and great songs, and that's why I think people are still playing that stuff.